Hello and good morning, listeners. I'm your host, Nengneinem Hangshing, welcoming you to our fifth episode on a special series produced by the regional news unit, Akashvani Kohima, as part of Seva Parv. With the growing rise of India as a global power, it becomes pertinent to understand how the economy, geopolitics, and internal policies play a crucial role. Our topic for today is India's emergence as a global power. And to give us all an in-depth analysis, we have with us Mr. Menosele Yhoshü, Assistant Professor, Japfü Christian College and Research Scholar at Nagaland University. Thank you, sir, for sparing us your valuable time and being with us here on this episode.
Thank you, ma'am, for the kind introduction, and also thank you, Akashvani, for having me.
Diving in straight to the topic, as an avid educator and scholar who is well versed in Indian economy and geopolitics, how would you define India's current position on the global stage?
Well, you see, when we look at India's rising stature, one can say that India has redefined its engagements domestically and also internationally, trying to claim its civilizational place in the world. That's how I should put it.
Now, as you've mentioned, with India's GDP growth predicted to drive India to become the world's third largest economy soon, how significant is India's economic growth in shaping its global influence?
The growing stature of India at the present momentum, say, is largely from the economic standpoint. This year, we had the record of the country superseding Japan to get its place as the fourth largest GDP in the world. So, truly that its economic benchmark is one of the metrics of calculating its stature as a rising global voice and power in the world at the moment.
So, we can say that India is looking forward to a very prosperous future.
According to the statistics, our GDP is fastest growing GDP in the world, even against the US and also the China and even Germany as for that sake. So at the present momentum of growth, India's GDP is expected to double by the end of this decade. And if India is able to maintain its GDP's growth and also development in the next 2 or 3 decades, it will be in an advantage position to take on the super big powers such as the US and China in the days to come.
That seems to be quite a promising future for India. Moving on to the next question. It is a known fact that the working population of a country greatly contributes to economic growth. On that note, how important is India's demographic dividend in achieving economic leadership?
Along with GDP's growth, one of the catalyzing factor of India's GDP's expansion and growth is also because of its young population. That is the demographic dividend. India is now the world's largest population of 1.4 billion. And our population is very, very young with more than 60% of our population is under 44 years of age, and we are expected to remain young, a young country till 2026. So indeed, it is a huge asset for the country to have a huge population, that also with a young population that is ready to get into the workforce as a skilled labor, skilled professionals to take the challenges within the country and also globally. So indeed, yes, demographic dividend is a big asset to India and to the regret of other superpowers such as US, China and others. Their population is getting old. So yeah, population, one of the biggest assets India is taking advantage of.
That is a very promising thing again, looking at India's population, that it is going to contribute a lot to our economic leadership. How has India's foreign policy evolved in response to global power shift? How is India leveraging its international trade partnerships, for example, with the US, the EU, and the Asian countries?
India's foreign policy has undergone a lot of redefinition. We are no longer a country that is non-aligned. We are a country now under the dispensation of Narendra Modi's prime ministership, and also with a prolific foreign minister that India is able to pitch in its stake in the community of the world, that it is no longer a country that is passive, but it is not just reactive, but it is responsive and proactive in so many domains that comes across it. And it is also able to assert itself in so many critical junctures in the international issues, which India is also directly and indirectly a part of. And going back to your question on India's relations with US, EU and ASEAN, I should say India is able to smartly navigate across critical and also certain issues which India is also could also be victimized. But yeah, thanks to India's smart and strategic deployment of its diplomacy and also its engagement in contrast to for the situation of Russian and Ukrainian war, that India is able to navigate smartly even against the US oppositions and also certain sanctions that came along with it. So I should say India is able to navigate smartly thanks to its strategic autonomy, which India is able to roll out in its engagements with its counterparts. And back to EU, I should say India is able to do much well. India is signing a lot of bilateral trade treaties with EU countries individually also, and EU as a whole. So India is able to do a lot there. And back to ASEAN, through its Act East policy, India is also able to get along very well with the ASEAN countries. India have signed certain bilateral trade agreements with ASEAN countries individually also and also collectively. So I should say that trade relations comes along with also diplomatic relations. So with hand in hand, India is able to do very, very well with different blocs and also individual countries around the world.
Looking at the present scenario, how US and India's relations are kind of degrading, do you think that India's partnerships with the US, EU and Asian countries, that will be helpful for India?
Yes, it is. It cannot remain a country that shuts itself in on its own. India needs to engage, and an aspirant of a major power in the years to come, in its 100 years of independence, India cannot choose to be a country that chooses conflict over issues such that it hurts itself without engaging itself. So India should engage despite the difficulties. And so far, in the 21st century, the government of India is able to engage itself really, really well, not just appeasement policies, but also is able to stake in itself that India is in the position to take a leading position, and India is also able to take certain standpoints which thinks itself is in its national interest. Yes, India should engage and continue to.
So in your opinion, how has India's role in global forums like G20, BRICS and the UN evolved?
India as a country is a member of several international, regional groupings, and specifically to G20, India has done really, really well. Its presidency was a defining moment that India is able to showcase to other counterparts that it is a potential nation that can take on larger and bigger responsibilities in the days to come. The presidency of India in the G20 from 2023 to 2024 was a success story, I should say, that India is building an image of itself. And in other international platforms such as BRICS, India is a founding member. India is like working hand in hand with other two big powers such as China, Russia, Brazil is also there, and South Africa is also there. And I should say India is able to strategically navigate between its neighbor contestations, but it is able to emerge out of that and work hand in hand with even China for that sake. And BRICS, of course, is a grouping that is working and also is operating in such a way that counteracts the dollar supremacy, that is the US supremacy around the world. So India's role in G20, BRICS are like very, very influential. And Quad, India is also able to checkmate China by working hand in hand with Australia, Japan and US as a checkmate of China's assertive and expansionist tendencies. Working hand in hand with other parties also, India is also able to secure its national interest in engaging in all these platforms.
Moving on to a slightly different subject area, what are India's contributions to tackling global challenges such as climate change and global health? How significant do you think is India's role in global peacekeeping and security cooperation?
India, as a member of the United Nations, is a signatory of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. It has been an active participant so far. India is also engaging nationally within itself and also internationally, taking on the leading role as to climate change challenges. As a signatory of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. India is rolling out a lot of policies also, and it is also a signatory of the Paris Agreement. So this shows that India's commitment to climate and also environmental conservation efforts. And famously, India have also launched the International Solar Alliance along with France. So, and India is through this platform of Solar Alliance, India is trying to pitch itself as a leader of adopting new alternative and also clean energy. So this is one of the changes that India is pitching to the world, that it's not just its leadership is not just related to economics and other factors, but also environment is also a part and parcel of its national growth as well as international engagements. So that's very, very important. And related to health, India is a huge contributor to UN efforts in so many health and diseases control and pest control. Famously, during the pandemic, India also donated a lot of its medical kits and assistance in and around the world. The vaccine diplomacy is very, very famous. India donated around 100 billion vaccine medicine to so many countries around the world, free of cost. So it has, done a lot to improve the image of India, and not just that, but medically and technologically, it shows that India is also ready to take on international issues through this vaccine diplomacy. And of course, yes, climate change and other environmental conservation efforts. India is also has committed itself that it will install renewable energy, clean energy for itself, with the installation of 500 gigawatt plants and reduction of its carbon emission and so forth. So India is doing a lot, many more to go, but India is doing really well in these aspects as well.
Looking at the current status of India and Pakistan, the conflict that happened, what role do you think India's defense capability play in its global power status?
Well, you see, if you look at India in a situation of India versus Pakistan, it's always a painful reminder of its partition sentiments that remain to be so. So the unfinished business of the partition, India and Pakistan issue related to Kashmir. And yeah, India is also adopting a defensive position as well as an offensive positions now with the border conflicts that keeps on coming out often, with the terror attacks on either side of the border. So one should say that India should be able to, and is doing its best to assert its territorial sovereignty. But India also is convinced that it cannot afford to engage itself in a full-out military conflict, with the reasons that any military conflict would also result in turning itself as the bad boy amongst the international community. India projects itself as a peace-loving country. India believes in diplomatic engagement. So with all those moral principles as well, and also politically, India is very well aware that India cannot directly involve in a full-out military engagements with Pakistan. So it's a calculated move, but India is trying to do its best, but the best becomes a different story.
Looking at the current scenario between India and America as well, Donald Trump pushing its sanctions upon India, do you think all these things has led to our Prime Minister making initiatives like the Make in India impact and the purpose of Atmanirbhar Bharat? Do you think all these things have impacted him to make push on these issues in India?
I think it's not just the US, but India have realized, and because of the nature of the international system, the uncertain, volatile situation, I should say even other countries are well aware about this fact that one cannot be relying on one particular source, one particular alliance, one particular ally for that matter, to depend on it for all times to come. So to be secure, to be safe, and to work in its national interest, I think India needs a lot of its counterparts to engage for trade, for diplomatic engagements, military cooperation, and others. Starting the Atmanirbhar scheme is a very good call, I should say. It is an attempt to, start an initiative in India to start manufacturing, to engage in things which India have not done. It's like an open challenge to itself that it should wake up, it should stand on, it should skill itself, it should digitalize itself, it should be able to manufacture, technologies, devices, and products that it should also, that satisfies its needs, but also it is in potential, and it also in the possibility that one day India can also export such things. So it is a domestic call. It is also linked with foreign foreign policy, that Make in India policy is also not just for Indians, but also foreigners, attracting FDI to come in India and invest in India. So one way of saying it is that to start in a scheme of self-reliance and also to reduce dependency on foreign import. And another way is also to diversify its requirements in various domains.
In a sense, it reminds us of the Swadeshi movement that happened during the Indian fight for freedom, does it not?
Yes.
Moving on with our conversation, how would you assess the strategic use of India's soft power, such as the global outreach of yoga, Bollywood, and the diaspora?
India's emergence or emerging as major power is not just related to hard power, that is military power and economic power. A lot also depends on its soft power. And as you have suggested, yoga is a very good pitch, a subject that India could export it to the world. And in fact, yoga has been accepted by the United Nations as an important day that is celebrated across the world. And through yoga, India is also able to make a name for itself, that it is a spiritual guru. It is also exporting like wellness, a sort of a game plan that is in India is able to exert influence through exporting, through popularizing yoga around the world. And Bollywood, of course, it's a huge industry in India, and it is also able to pitch in the Bollywood personalities and also things along with that to work hand in hand with other film industries around the world. And in India's Bollywood actor and actresses have also been a part of so many Hollywood projects around the world, and it is earning a lot of recognition for the Indians around the world.
Yes.
And back to the diaspora, it is very, very important. They serve as the representative of India in their resident country. They are the bridge between India and the other people around the world. So you see that under Narendra Modi's prime ministership, most of his foreign trips are done without or with. The diasporas are always there. He makes it a point that he engages with the diaspora around the world, calling on them, to work on things that they can do best to improve India's image, India's engagement. So even in the US, for that matter, India is able to pitch in its diaspora to influence US foreign policy. So that's a very important one. And in the case of Canada, though there were some backlash between the Canadian government in India, still then the diaspora in Canada is very, very important for India's engagement. So it's not just that, but even across the world, the diaspora are doing really well for image building of India.
What are the main challenges India faces in becoming a global superpower?
Well, a lot, I should say, a lot. 2 points, domestically and also externally. To take on the domestic points, there are a wide disparity of social economic issues such as inequality in income, unemployment, environmental issues of lack of proper infrastructure, and a lot more. So these are some of the core issues that India is facing with. India is working on it. The percentage of inequality is reducing, poverty line is reducing, yet being blessed with a huge population, a young population, India is facing trusting and also critical issue of employment for its young population. So this is a big headache that the policymakers need to really work on it. Not just investment on education, but also work on skilling the young population so that they are ready to take on the tasks ahead of them. So that's one. And environmental issues, India needs to balance between development and also sustainable development. So India cannot afford to just exploit its natural resources and that hugely come at the cost of its environment, which will compromise its future plans and also a livable place for its future generations. Yes. So India needs to really work on a tight spot where it needs to balance the contrasting point that is working along with it. And internationally, true that India is doing really well, but not enough also. There are a lot of areas that India needs to work on. India is also confronted by the regional conflicts or contestations. India is a place that where it lives in a location in South Asia where most of its neighbors are not friendly. Yes. India is also facing a situation where most of its neighbors are pro-China, and then China is a huge regional as well as international rival of India. And not just that, but other issues which India also needs to really work on. One cannot say for sure that India cannot for sure be a country of appeasement if India wants to rise as a major pivotal voice in the country. So externally and domestically also India do have a lot of challenges to work on.
Moving on to the next question, how do domestic issues such as poverty, inequality, infrastructure affect India's global aspirations?
I've mentioned earlier about the domestic challenges. Taking the conversation a little further, inequality in income is a big factor. There are studies that are coming on saying that India is a home of billionaires, and the gap of income is so huge that someone have remarked that the billionaire rush is already there in India. The income gap that we are facing today is more than the income gap which we have faced during the British India period. So that's a contrasting point that despite the macroeconomics saying that India is the fastest growing economy, the fourth largest economy, promising to be the third largest economy by the close of the decade. These are the contrasting points that India needs to navigate, that the top riches as well as the poorest of the poor, there is a huge income gap. So this is going to be a huge problem that India needs to get. And then India with a big population, there is it will require a mastermind, master stroke. And if not that also, subsequent, issues needs to be, policies, programs needs to be in place to take out the poorest of the poor into the domain where they can afford a comfortable standard of living. So that's one issue that India is facing today in terms of poverty and inequality put together. The third issue which you have mentioned is on
infrastructure.
Infrastructure, yes. India is investing a lot on infrastructure, say roads, expansion of roads, superhighways, railways, airports, ports, etc. But I should say that these are the fundamentals of it. We are yet to put in place world-class infrastructure that works in a robust manner. So, and this infrastructural development also largely focused in or positioned in the areas where industries, factories, and companies are working on. So, for the case of, let me pitch in the case of Northeast India, no doubt road expansion, railway connections are being made, but the pace of its development are very, very disappointing. India is trying to put in place that each state of India should have a railway head. It's trying its best, but to putting in place and personalizing it, functionalizing it becomes a problem. So there are a lot of ways that India needs to be working on as far as infrastructural matters are concerned. And beyond that, working beyond to the infrastructural matters, India needs to put in place an ecosystem that works in such a vibrant or robust manner that works in synchronization with its constituent parts within the country, and also it is in the position to engage with its neighbors and around the world.
So we can see that India still has miles to go dealing with poverty, inequality, infrastructure issues so that it achieves its global aspirations, right?
Yes.
Okay, moving on. Do you think that with whatever is happening in the country today, internally, the internal political dynamics, how does it hinder India's rise?
You see, India as a big democratic country, cradle of democracy known as the world's largest democracy, it's without troubles. No doubt, India is existing as a democratic sovereign country for the last 70 plus years. We are able to do so much. We are able to major a lot in our political discourses. Yet, we are far from being matured and in a way that our political system is not yet ready to take India to the next step as a major power. Why I say so is because most of our laws, most of our bylaws, colonial in nature, and there are certain changes being made to remove the colonial mindset, colonial procedures and protocols. Yet there are a lot more that India should, as a country, should work on to change, to start with the rule book, let's say. I'm not denying that the Constitution of India is British made, it is an Indian made, but the procedure being followed by the bylaws are very, very colonial. So we need to be ingenious in this matter to create a system, bylaws that is suitable to the Indians for times to come. And coming back to your topic about the political discourses, it can be considered as a catalyst to enhance India's route to become global power. But it can also act as a kind of a disaster as well. You see, in India, the political differences is not much there. Yet, the politics of polarization, communal politics, identity politics, these are some of the things that are the boosters of Indian political scenario, the electoral process that comes around after every 5 years. So these are the mileage or the boosters that gets a government elected. But to view it from a national standpoint, as a sustained trend of practices, India needs to overcome such things. And policymakers, leaders in different domains need to really work on this matter, that India, being a 70 or almost 80 years old nation, needs to overcome such, exclusive, polarizing politics. We really need to work on things that brings us together, to work in harmony, to work mutually, and so that we are able to learn, benefit from each other. So political dynamics is a very important, I should say, engine oil for India, to take on India, so that the country is in the position to take the right decision, to implement the right decision in the right time, in the right circumstance, and to navigate the country on the domestic issues, international issues, smartly and strategically also.
We have seen that India has tried to shell out different policies that look towards the East for the betterment of the country. So, looking at all these policies, what do you think are the geopolitical implications of India's Act East policy? And to what extent do you think has the policy succeeded in deepening India's engagement with Southeast and East Asian countries?
To take on the topic of Act East policy, let's go back a step behind. The background of the Act East policy is change in nomenclature. It was previously a Look East, and the Look East policy is largely a military architecture. Indian government, it's to checkmate the rise of China. So previously it was loaded with security dimensions, but with the change in nomenclature, government is also changing the gear towards the East through the Act East policy. Now, along with the military dimension, in India is also including economic and other engagements as well. The objectives of Act East is to actively act on it, and mostly it's targeted towards the Southeast Asian countries, Far East countries also. In certain areas, we can say that India is doing quite well through the policy, but in certain way also India is confronted and is also not in a good position to really work it out. For, say, example, the case of Myanmar. Myanmar, aware that it is going through political instability, political turmoil, so and also with the huge Chinese presence in Myanmar, India is not able to work hand in hand so well with the Myanmarese government, whomsoever is in charge. So, for instance, the Kaladan multinodal project, which India has rolled out with the Myanmarese government, is on hold because of political security issues that are happening in Myanmar. So that's one flip side of the Act East policy. But on the other positive note, India is able to engage really well with ASEAN countries such as Malaysia, Singapore, Indonesia, and even Thailand, Cambodia. A lot of security, military-related, maritime, and business-related cooperations are being signed between India with ASEAN countries all together, and also individually bilateral ties are there. So I should say many more to go, but India is slowly able to get the attention of these Asian superpowers through the Act East policy.
So you have given us some insights on the implications of India's Act East policy in its engagement with Southeast and East Asian countries. So let us move towards India, one of the states in India, or we can see the northeastern region. What do you think are the strategic implications of India's Act East policy for its northeastern region in specific, both politically and economically?
When the Look East policy and also Act East policy was defined and redefined, Northeast India was taken as the gateway of India, as the stepping stone of India to engage with its Asian neighbors. Yet we see that so far the Northeast India is not really doing so well. Like earlier I've mentioned, the trade cooperations, engagements which India have signed and is also trading with the Southeast Asian countries. Most of the trading happens through sea. And since Northeast is a region that is landlocked, most of these trading routes are not passing through Northeast region. In fact, it is going through Bay of Bengal to Kolkata or other mainland India. So this is where the Northeast of India is also getting lost. Another way is that politically it gives the Northeast a prominent place, yet politics should also go hand in hand with economics. And because of terrain, because of the international issues happening on the other side of the border, the Chinese, the Myanmaris, and other issues which India is faced with. India is not able to even construct a physical connection, that is a road, railway connection between the northeastern states, and the nearest to start with is the Myanmarese government. So these are some of the constraints, and in recent times, the government calling on the northeastern states to close down its borders, its open borders through the FMR is not a very good positive step for the people of the Northeast. From the perspective of the people of the Northeast, it's not a welcome step. It's not a positive way where its people in the Northeast can engage in small-scale business transactions with other people on the other side of the border, which is mostly the Myanmaris, but there are also reports saying that goods and also items from not just narcotics, but also goods, clothes, and others, that's coming through Myanmar from Cambodia, Thailand, and elsewhere. So these may not be important issues or important elements in national trade for that sake, but from the perspective of a local, these are small areas where to start an engagement. This opening, keeping the border open, is important for the local people to engage and take advantage of the policy at hand.
Let us now focus on our home state, that is Nagaland. In what ways can Nagaland contribute to India's emergence as a global power, particularly through the lens of regional integration, soft power, and strategic location?
In continuation of my previous comment, that is the Northeast, particularly now back to Nagaland. Indeed, as a constituent state of India and being a state that is very close to the border, Nagaland do have certain advantage, that is its geographical affinity with the international border. Yet we lack the right infrastructure to engage it. That also one. And another one is we lack the certain infrastructural avenues, such as we don't have the certain manufacturing goods that's coming out of Nagaland with that, where we can also straight away trade on. And Nagaland is constrained on so many factors, geographical factors, economic factors, and also political factors that are coming around again and again. So going beyond that also, positively, Nagaland do need to engage more. And in a certain way, we can say that Nagaland is engaging through its soft power and culture. The handshake concert that are being held in Southeast Asian countries, that is a positive step. And recently also there was a Northeast Festival held in Singapore, which Nagaland team also went and participated. Nagaland can engage with the South Asian countries through its culture, music, art, handicrafts, etc. So it may be in a small scale, but these are areas where we can work on, we can capitalize on to start engaging by our own without really depending on the government of India to come up with a proposed plan that Nagaland should come up with this thing for this and for that matter. So Nagas and Nagaland government should work on how best we can also take advantage of the situation to engage more, to learn more, to trade, and also to develop and progress from this Act East policy.
Coming towards a close on our conversation, for the final question to you, I would like to ask is, what key areas should India focus on to solidify its status as a global power in the next decade? How do you picture India's global role in 2040 as it envisions to become Viksit Bharat by 2047?
Well, that drives home the million-dollar question, how can India, or in what way best India can do? So there are many, of course. Domestically, we have gone through certain issues. India needs to work on its socio-economic issues for that matter. It should be in a position to take out the poorest of the poorest, the deprived, the marginalized, the tribals out of its poor state of existence, in par with the mainland, in par with the advanced elites. And education is an area that India needs to work on. Though the percentage of education is somehow impressive, we don't have a world-class educational system that really gives the professional edge to the students. Vocational skills are required so that the young population are capable, enhanced as the next generation of leaders. As the pool, India should look at itself that its population should be the pool of a world's professional to take on any jobs that comes around it. So it should really take advantage of the young population, but to really engage its young population, it's not an easy task. It's going to be a massive challenges needs to be overcome to really work on it. And India also needs to come up with world-class facilities, not just universities, but facilities, infrastructure and ecosystem for sure. And India needs to start on working on self-reliant industries and manufacturing. No doubt India needs investment from outside, FDI, but India also need to work on technologies that are the next generation to take on as a global leader. Internationally, India needs to do more as well. India is doing quite well in itself in comparison to the likes of United States or China or Germany or Japan. India is still a long way to assert itself as a major voice, but India is doing really well in itself. Its rise as a prominent nation is also very well acknowledged by its counterpart. Its rise is very gradual. Its rise is, let's say, very incremental, very slow. Yet it has developed a system where its growth is sustained, its growth is resilient, and India needs to work on these things also. That economy is a very important issue, but one should also not neglect the socio-economic issue. And India should to be a global leader by 2047, as we say. We just have 2 more decades to work on. These are the avenues, these are the only 2 decades or windows where India can work on itself to speed up its development, its upcoming as a global major power. And India should focus on economic aspects domestically and also internationally. And India should be very, very careful to not engage in any military outright conflict around the world.
So listeners, that was Mr. Menosele Yhoshü briefing us with his valuable insights on a very pertinent topic of our times, India's emergence as a global power. It is my belief that we as citizens of this great country have found this conversation to be truly enlightening. Thank you, Mr. Menosele, and thank you, dear listeners, for tuning in to this broadcast of Akashvani Kohima.